was automated.
Okay, cool. Well,
It's just
I already been.
recording actually.
Okay, cool. So I just thought I'm talking to myself. It's happened to me
Everyone
before.
can hear you. Yeah, this is just kind of start to.
These new technologies are driving me crazy. Every kind of platform that you use work differently. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. So thank you so much for joining our webinars. That is a second webinar in the series of webinars that we are hosting as part of our Funding Accelerator program. I know that many. Hi, Alexandra. Hi, Arthur. Hi, guys. So I know that many of you have attended our last webinar that was dedicated to renewable energy and energy storage. Today, the webinar is dedicated to biomass to energy and hydrogen. Very two relevant and very exciting topics. I know that there is a lot of interest now in hydrogen. Biomass is very hot. I mean, all the green energy kind of space is very hot indeed. So let me just quickly, for those of you who don't know us, let me just quickly tell you a little bit about QPQ International. So we are founders, Vlad and I, and we are international digital platform created in support of developers of green energy projects. So everything we do, we actually do to support green energy transition and green energy project developers. The Funding Accelerator program is actually the sole purpose is to advance development, accelerate financing, and secure world-class partners and funders for developers that we are supporting as part of this program. You can actually get more information about the Funding Accelerator program following the link that Vlad will share with you shortly here in the chat window.
I'll do it right away, so you'll have it here handy.
Yes, so Vlad, you will share, right?
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Okay,
so
fantastic.
There are two links. There is one for the Funding Accelerator program, where you can submit your projects. And there is one for the Funding Accelerator event, which will be end of November this year.
Yes, it will be in November. So basically, Funding Accelerator program culminates in the annual event. It's a similar event that we did last year, which is Green Energy Summit. But this year, we're actually creating a larger event, much more exciting event, because we'll have already quite a large network of investors. And we expect in the realm of 350 or 400 investors, professional investors from all over the world who will be participating in the event. Having said that, project developers who submit their projects, they go through the program, and basically you can see the steps that we take participating projects during the program. But those who actually invest already, we actually present to our investors as soon as they are ready. Basically, you don't need to wait for the event itself to actually start getting traction. And we pride ourselves in our ability to get results fast. So one important thing to note is that we work with primarily utility scale projects initiated by professional teams, and that is renewable energy, waste to energy, hydrogen, and energy storage space. Yes, so you can see also qualifying criteria following the link that Vlad will share with you or have already shared.
I have already posted two links. So first one is for the program, and second one for the event. So program, that's where you can actually submit your projects and see all the qualifying criteria that Oksana is talking about.
Yes, exactly. And you can also just share the handouts. So now,
while you're on this note, handouts already available for the next speaker, William, and for Oksana. I don't know, Oksana, if you want to use those handouts to kind of.
That's okay. Yes, sure. You can do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, do you want to just leave it there for people to download, or you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. No, people can download it. It's okay. I mean, many people know us already. So those who don't know, they can download. So now this is with greatest pleasure and pride. I would like to invite to the stage William Zilli. Is one of our senior advisors. He leads and curates a number of projects a person with a 40+ years experience in the energy and infrastructure sector. He advised and kind of commissioned a lot of projects in this sector, incredible amount of wealth of experience and knowledge. So really we'll be talking about biomass to energy. Really, thank you so much for supporting the program and our developers. Welcome on stage. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Willy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Oksana, and thanks, Vlad, for allowing me to talk and do some stories or some feedback on where we are. I think a couple of months ago, I've done a bit of a presentation for QPQ and really looked at what documents are required from a BFS point of view to allow us to present as QPQ your projects and various projects to investors. And I think that went down reasonably well, but was very, very detailed. So today's topic, and I'm going to present it on the screen, is going to be more around the feedstock supply and the key questions that investors have, in particular, when we first present your projects to them. And hopefully everybody can. Vlad, can you see the screen? Can I confirm that you can see the screen?
Sorry, I was off the stage. No, I don't see a screen yet. So.
You know what? I don't think I've shared. My apologies. This is I got to start sharing first, and then I'm gonna share.
But also, I received just another message from Gary. Says that he cannot hear you. It seems that you're on mute. We all can hear you perfectly fine. So perhaps someone from our IT team, Stefan or Amir, they're on the back end helping us. They will reach out to you to make sure that your settings, Gary, are fine. If anyone else have the same issues, please send a message in chat, and we'll try to fix it remotely. And one more thing before William starts. So if you guys have questions as we go through the presentations, please post them in chat, and we'll have about 5 minutes after William's presentation to go through it. Thank you. I'll go off the stage, Willie. If you need me, you ask me.
Yeah, can you just confirm that you can see my screen, please?
Yeah, I can see first. I think it's the first slide, bioenergy. Let's start with the feedstock. That's the one.
That's great. And I'll try to talk a bit louder so that everybody can hear me. But I think
I can hear you perfectly fine. If someone else has an issue, that we'll fix it. So you just go through the presentation. We'll make sure that all technical issues are sorted. If I cannot hear you, then it means everyone else can. Then I'll connect back, go back on stage, and then let you know. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, good day, everybody, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak to you a little bit about what I can share. I think I've been with QPQ for about a year now, and many projects that I've had a look at come from developers. A number of them we've presented to investors, and quite interestingly, definitely, as Oksana said, bioenergy has become extremely popular over the past couple of months, both in developed and undeveloped countries or third world countries, and involves a number of feedstock and types of feedstock. And common questions, and really that's what I'm going to focus on today, is really some of the key questions I get asked every time I present the teaser to investors for the first time. And many of developers, particularly developers this is their first project, or perhaps aren't quite there, this is where they seem to fall short of getting the muster to allow us to take it to the next level of investment and due diligence. So I'm going to start with the feedstock. Let's start at the beginning. My previous presentation covered what makes up an acceptable bankable suite of documents from a feasibility and a financier point of view. But let's look at the feedstock. So in summary, just to go back, if you look at QPQ, our role is really, and my role is really, to match the developer to the investors, look at the good projects, and try and help them go through to financial close. If I look at project development as a whole, and this is all old news for all of the seasoned developers and investors out there, I think very importantly, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, you initially start with the pre-feasibility, and that is where you choose your site location, the type of feedstock availability, various revenue options that you can get from the feedstock, but also from your sale in the output, be it product, or be it electricity, or be it heat or fuel. And obviously you start preparing the various budget and the project partners. And as you get past that go, no-go gate of scoping, you move into what I would call the pre-feasibility study. Sorry, I've gone one too fast. The pre-feasibility phase, where you really start cementing your more detail about the makeup of your feedstock, the quality, the quantity, the supplier. The location of your site becomes critical, and obviously firming up on your revenue streams and that. And once you get past that go, no-go, you really start spending quite a bit of money in the plant design, bring on your EPCs, look at the costing, the OEM, the technologies, start getting the various letters of intent, memorandums of understanding, and potentially PPAs or offtake agreements, depending on the output product. But what plenty of developers perhaps fall short on, and which is what we're going to be focusing on today, is the risk management of your projects. What have you done to mitigate the risk, to give the investor, the shareholders, and the lenders comfort in that you have considered the risk, you've rated the risk, and where possible, you've mitigated the risk, so that they can get comfort, in fact, that the money that they're investing is, in fact, a good investment, and they're looking after their financiers, their investors' money in a professional manner. And the key factors that come up, which is really important, revolves around the environmental issues, the feedstock supply issues, the feedstock agreements, and very much so the permitting. Independent advisors, something different, but the key issues revolve around the environmental impact, the feedstock supply and alternative plans, the agreements that are in place and the tenor of the agreements, and the permitting. And I'm going to cover that in a little bit more detail before we consider going forward into anything further. Again, if we look at the project elements, and again, to all developers and investors out there, this is an old bit of news. On the left-hand side, you'll notice over there we have basically the biomass, the fuel or the feedstock on the left-hand side here. And many investors talk about their own farms, creating their own bamboo farms, creating their own banana grass or energy grass, and have their own agricultural type sites, or, for example, waste tip areas or dumps, and also sourcing from external suppliers. The SPV as such is created, and as we all know, from the feedstock supply, we have an output, which could be energy, could be heat, it could be product, it could be renewable diesel or fuels or fertilizer. It just depends on what the process is. Investors, the equity into the project, the loans or the debt provided are critical to allow this SPV to close the project and the money that is required to close the project. And obviously, the SPV, during this financial and preparation phase to get to a financial close, they need the necessary external consultants, technical advisors, lawyers, various companies, the EPC and OEM contractors, and insurance. But we're going to focus again on the front end, because at the end of the day, this is critical to allow the project to move forward. Now, if we talk about bioenergy, there's various sources of bioenergy and biomass. And as we know well, there's municipal solid waste, there's the forestry crops and residues, sewage, agricultural crops and their residuals, animal residue, and of course in industry, leftovers from the construction industry or manufacturing industry and that. And quite interestingly, a couple of the interest in biomass projects around the globe at the moment, the amount of projects we're receiving, but also the amount of investors that are putting their hand up to want to invest into biomass projects, be it for energy, be it for renewable fuel, or for product and fertilizer, is becoming more and more prevalent. And in fact, you would have read not that long ago that a major initiative by the community, international community, to prevent plastic and waste in the oceans, but also to utilize plastic and products from both from industry and from municipal waste more efficiently and allow it to be less dumping and discarding of plastic. And only 9% at the moment is in fact getting recycled in one way or another. Landfills, as you can see, are becoming a problem or are a problem, and land is becoming a big issue. In COP26, deforestation was high on the agenda, and bioenergy and biomass now has to be properly managed through green, controlled, and environmentally friendly forests, and that becomes an important factor when considering that form of feedstock. And there is a definite growth in developing countries getting financial assistance, both for agricultural crops and residuals for feeding, but also for agro-industrial and other opportunities. And I think that is extremely important to focus. So whatever your project is with regards to bioenergy, each and every one of these has got the same questions that get raised by the investor. I'm briefly going to just touch on the value chain. I'm not really going to spend any time on this, and this was a very nice document that was generated by a Norway university. Again, we talk about the different types of feedstocks, using the different types of, I'll zoom in a little bit here if it helps you. You'll see there's different types of feedstocks that you can see over here, which will allow us to actually use different types of technology, different types of products can come out, and obviously the market which we service. And all of these depend where the risk and the mitigation of this is extremely important. So we're going to again focus on the feedstock and the waste to energy in our questions, and highlight that from a development point of view that you need to consider. So when you put your project together and you're doing your pre-feasibility, your feasibility, as well as your bankable suite of documents, the obvious challenges that you always face is the return on your project investment needs to be sound and needs to be attractive to those that are going to invest into your project. Point one. And to do that in waste to energy project, generally, you need some form of compensation or some source of funding from the feedstock, from the waste, that you are able to make sure that the return on that investment is consistent and positive and complies with what is required in your financial model. The project needs to be bankable, and that means that all the risk mitigation requirements needs to be considered, and to make sure that it is sound and that the due diligence, it will stand the muster of the due diligence of the investors and of lenders. And therefore, the suite of documents that you put together needs to be able to present it to investors that it gives you sufficient confidence that they will consider your project. The composition of feedstock, whether it be waste to energy or plastics, in a tip, whether or not it be biomass or some sort of bamboo or grass that you plant, or whether it be from sewage, the composition of that feedstock is extremely important, and it may vary over time. And the question is, how have you mitigated the fact that this may have an impact on the technology that you use? It may foul up certain parts of the technology, or it may change the availability or the output of your process or your plant. And that needs to be mitigated. Linked to that comes your technology selection and performance. And important associated with that is the fact that investors are quite shy, particularly in large sums of money, are quite shy to have first-of-a-kind technology, are quite shy to have process risk, particularly when there are unknown or inconsistent feedstock sources available, and that needs to be considered. And therefore, a lot of time has to be spent on that. Feedstock guarantees, we'll talk a little bit about that. Definitely need to underpin the funding of the project and need to come with a large balance sheet normally. Many shortfalls come where developers believe that they are able to farm or create their own farms of feedstock, and this is a secure source of feedstock. But they don't realize that the core problem associated with this is that if the feedstock fails, there's no recourse to the lender due to lack of revenue to offset or to cover their costs and repay the debt or the loans. And we need to talk a little bit about that. The facility, obviously, we need to comply with any regulatory or permit and environmental approvals. Country and location is important. And generally, you would want to try and find additional revenue streams to ensure that the project is financially attractive. So what are some of the key questions that I get asked all the time by investors when I present the project to them? Number one, and I think this is very important, what is the experience of the project owner team? Where are their CVs? What have they done before? What makes them experts in the field? It doesn't help you having a farming expert, but he doesn't understand the process or the technology or hasn't delivered projects. So we need to have good reference and good CVs, and you need to have a strong owners team. Does the project owner, has he done enough and has put enough money into the project to actually bring it to financial readiness? They want to see skin in the game and potentially equity and into the actual SPV itself. Many of the projects, or sorry, the investors are very keen to see a pipeline of projects, not immediately, but as they invest in the first project, there's a pipeline of projects that allows them to gain confidence and obviously possibly take larger investment into the project. And that is critical to get to that point. So they like to see an opportunity for pipeline. And definitely, as I mentioned earlier, what share capital will the project owner put into the project that shows confidence in his project, and that he has not only put money in to develop the project, but has also put money into the actual, is prepared to put money into the capital, into the share and the SPV of the project itself. We talk about site information and environmental status, very important, location and location. There's a lot of public sentiment around biomass projects, whether it be forestry and chopping down trees and replanting trees and creating that green economy on the forestry side, or even if it's alien trees, it's very important that it be managed in the right place with the right public sentiment, with the right groups. The consumption and emissions, you know, everybody says not on my doorstep. We need to comply with world norms, EU norms, to make sure that the type of waste that we consume, the residues from this waste, the emissions associated with the waste, whether it be water, whether it be emissions into the atmosphere, that these are in fact compliant. They comply with the environmental requirements, the permits, and the necessary documentation allows you to build a plant like this and also to operate and maintain it for the duration of the project, which could be the debt period and generally 20 to 25, 30 years or longer. And we've spoken about the permits and approvals, which include construction permits and all the associated key questions and tick boxes. All of these we need to tick before we speak to the investor. Feedstock, very important. Credibility of supplier. If you're going to be buying your waste, if you're going to be buying wood offcuts, if you're going to be buying from farmers, what is the credibility of the supplier? Do they have a history? Can they deliver? Do they have the balance sheet? As well as their financial standing and the ability to supply guarantees that they are able to supply the quality and the quantity of their feedstock for the tenor that's in the contract, and that they can stand by the payment guarantees if they are not able to do so. Extremely important. The fuels, at the sources of, if it comes from off-site, what are the transport risks? What is the storage risks? What could happen to the fuel or the feedstock from site? How do you store it? What's the insurance associated with that? What are the risks associated with storage? And I think that needs to be discussed, and a plan needs to be put together to give you an alternative A, alternative B, what if something goes wrong. Important regarding the agricultural and forestry production, whether it be something that is grown, agriculture that is grown specifically for the process, for generation, or for the renewable diesel or fuel, or whether it be residuals from byproducts of wood chippings, etc., is the seasonal variation. What happens during drought? What happens during too much rain? What happens if the fertilizer has changed and the composition of your feedstock has changed and it has a problem on your technology, and the technology becomes problematic and does not perform? How have you treated that? How have you considered that? And also, how have you considered the compliance with regards deforestation, that everything that you're doing complies with green compliance, environmental and statutory requirements globally? Investors don't want to invest where there's potentially going to be a stigma of their investment. They want to be seen to be investing in green, renewable resources. I think you need to consider the flexibility of your biomass. Different places, different locations of biomass, different sources have a plan B, possibly even a plan C, depending on what the pressures are and what the risk is in country from your supplier or suppliers and yourself. And then associated with the front end comes your OEM technology supplier, your engineer that's part of your SPV, your owner's engineer, would have obviously done his homework on the technology selection, where the plant is located, how far it is from the source of the feedstock, has it got water, does it have grid connection, does it have sufficient power to run, is the environment fine for that particular application? Is the plant suitably sized for the project? What has been done to prove that the plant is not too big or not too small, can cope with the parasitic load, and it can cope with the variance in the feedstock, in the biomass itself? Is it acceptable? Is it proven? And of course, is it reliable? Is the biomass fuel suitable for the technology? We've spoken about that. One of the key issues the investors don't want to see is that there's technology risk. And don't think that by having a product or a part of the process from OEM supplier A that's been working for years, and a process part B that is from another alternative OEM supplier, and a part C, that technology risk is covered. It's the integration between these various working parts that is absolutely critical, that perhaps an EPC would be willing to give a total overall wrap for the project, taking full risk, but only having the suppliers or the OEMs guarantees associated with their process. That is not sufficient for investors. There needs to be an overall guarantee. There needs to be proven technology and plants. There needs to be an EPC that's going to wrap the total project and going to guarantee the feedstock in, is going to give you product out, is going to limit the emissions, all within the criteria. And if not, there needs to be recourse. And that recourse needs to come from the EPC and the OEM contracts that need to be provided. So I've said a lot in a very short time. I think my time is up. I think really in developing your projects, have a look at the front end, have a look at your feedstock, have a look at how you mitigate that. And that would give investors comfort in going on to the next steps, which in fact starts the costing of the project, the PPAs or the outputs or the offtake agreements, and all the other associated contracts. But it's a difficult part that needs to be done, and a lot of care needs to, when you put the data pack together, documents for this, we need to tick these boxes and answer these questions. I think that covers it from my perspective, Lad. I think questions on that we'll leave for later.
Yeah, no, actually, we have one question, because we have several questions, but I really like the format of your presentation where you address the most important questions asked by investors and all the key stakeholders involved in such projects. And I well, looking at the questions that we have here in chat, that project developers have the same questions. So you already answered most of them. Just the one quick one, perhaps you have some suggestions. When it comes to permitting, many governments will not deal with developers until they have acquired a site. So without cash, how do you acquire the land? So perhaps you have some suggestions for this.
Yeah, I think there's many ways to always skin a cat. You know, if you have a look at a very simple wind farm, or in fact, those type of projects, a developer would go to farmers in a big area or to the landowners in a big area and lay out from a project map point of view, this is going to be the location of my wind towers that I would like to do. They then go to those farmers and they do a negotiated contract to procure those lands and the use of certain points of those lands when the project fund starts flowing. So basically they have an agreement, a land agreement with an off-taker or with the supplier of the land. That is a document that will be honored by the parties and can be used as a, let's call it a CP. Similarly, I don't see any reason why investors and the environmental permits and that will not consider the fact that we will procure, this is the land we would like to use. This is the land use agreement that I have with the landowner. These are the conditions precedents that as soon as project funding flows, this will be the transition of the land into the SPV if they don't want to spend the money up front. And I believe that will be suffice to get, in principle, environmental ruling for the project. Many environmental projects, in principle, they say, here's your environmental permit in principle. However, you've got to remember that when you start construction and you're building, you still have to comply to all the requirements of the environmental permits. It may be looking after certain plant types, certain animal species. There may be archaeological finds, it may be water, it may be ground uses, etc. You have to comply with that during the construction phase before you get your final permit for COD. And then, of course, during the operation and maintenance tenure as well, you need to be annual audits that you are complying environmentally, and you will continue to do so. So I think a proper land agreement would be suitable, signed, that is part of the suite of documents, will be allow you to get environmental approval in principle, which will be sufficient for investors.
Very good, thank you. Oh, you want to add something, Oksana? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, invariably development phase of any project is harder to finance, right? When project is ready to build, there's definitely much more investors than when the project is early stage, especially when it's a biomass or waste energy project. It's a complicated project with so many different, moving parts that need to be present. And then, of course, my hats off to you, gentlemen, or audience here. I presume most of you are developing projects in the space. Definitely not an easy task, and so many things that need to be organized. But in my view, of course, the development phase, we're probably about only 20 or 30% of our investors are prepared to step into a financing development phase. So even less, probably 20, right, William? Yeah, so then I know it's like that phase of of your project where, of course, it's not easy. You need to look for for investors who are actually prepared to take early stage development risk. But as long as I think that you stick to the, William covered fantastically all the tough questions that investors are asking. And we also have a very good checklist that we can share with you, that you can kind of start, which can guide you in your journey towards becoming investor ready. And yes, and then of course we will do all we can to kind of help you in that phase as well. So thank you so much, Willie, for such a wonderful presentation. I kind of asked specifically, and you've done such an amazing job making it really practical and really relevant, because so many of developers ask us these questions. And there is such a big gap in quite often in the developers' expectations and language and expectations of investors. And this is what we're doing here, trying to bridge this gap. Willie, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you,
no,
Willie.
That's great. And I'll just add that there is some one or two questions which perhaps we can take a note of, and we can respond to those individuals directly.
Yes, definitely.
When we have time.
That's what I wanted to mention. There are a few more questions. I'll forward them to you, and perhaps we can just have it.
Thank you
most
very
of
much.
it was covered in your presentation, technology risk, and all other. But thank you very much, Willie.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. This is, and now I would love to invite to a stage very good friend and a colleague, Sertaç Yener. Sertaç actually supported us through a number of events. He was with us in our group, supporting our hydrogen group last year, right? So Sertaç is an executive advisor and finance and project management professional who actually kind of led a number of ultra successful transactions in the realm of like $20 billion. Right now, he is kind of managing very large hydrogen projects in the US. Sertaç tend to be all over the world. I don't know where in the world you are tonight, Sertaç, but thank you so much for joining us. It's fantastic, great, really happy to see you. So Sertaç will be covering hydrogen and how to make your project successful. A lot of very practical perspective. This is what we emphasize on. Sertaç, thank you so much. And
great to have you here, Sertaç. Please go ahead. And also, guys, just remember to ask questions. So Sertaç will be taking care of the hydrogen part, so hydrogen-related questions. And also presentation for William is available in the handout section. I think, Sertaç will kind of just share his wisdom without the presentation, so you kind of just listen in.
Yes, Sertaç doesn't like presentations. He likes very kind of spontaneous. He has such incredible wealth of knowledge. He can just come to any presentation without preparation and tell you so much that. But I actually suggest you, whoever is here, to actually make notes. Yes, to you, Sertaç.
Thank you. You can hear me, yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fine, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vlad and Oksana. Let me tell you a few words about myself. I have been in renewable energy since mid-1980s, so about 35 years now. And I have been involved with my first hydrogen project in mid-2000s, precisely in 2007, when the United Nations developed its first electrolysis plant in Turkey. So my hydrogen past goes back 15 years. Along the way, I have worked as an engineer, as a banker, and for the past 15 years or so, I have been working in C-suites, boards, and advising them. Maybe more relevantly, at the moment, we are developing very actively a hydrogen ammonia plant that utilizes biomass and carbon capture and sequestration, CCS. So today I will try to give you a broad overview of the world energy situation and very quickly zoom in on the hydrogen bit. Let me set my alarm clock so that I don't overrun the schedule. So the world will consume this year, 2022, about 600 exajoules of primary energy. Exa is 10 to the power 18, joule is watt second. Now, out of the 600, 500 is fossil fuels. So mainly, obviously, coal, oil, and natural gas. So we have to find a way to replace this 500 exajoules with fuels that, or energy that does not require carbon emissions. So that's our starting point. And several of us in the industry, and I'm sure a lot of you, are working on battery technologies and green hydrogen and green ammonia, demand management, software solutions, smart grids, and the like. The good thing about these is that all of them will contribute a little to the project, and there are many of these. So put together, they will go some distance. But when we talk about the moments when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, we must have in our toolbox the tools to make our power and energy reliable, cheap, and ideally political crisis proof. So while we were working on this carbon issue for the past many years, my Kyoto goes back to 1990s, and I have been working on decarbonization one way or the other for over 20 years. So, but after 20 years, where we achieved is basically less than 6% of the world primary energy production comes from solar and wind and biomass. So basically, while we are attacking the beast from many directions, we need a really sledgehammer solution to bring down the elephant-size problems. And that elephant-size problem, in our case, is reliability mostly. Because if you need like 10 gigawatts of power just to back up your systems, 20 gigawatts, 20,000 megawatts of power, just to back up your systems on the days when wind and solar may not support you. Doing this out of batteries, small hydrogen installations, etc., these really will not cut it. You need big solutions for big problems. So then let me give you the most striking example on how tiny solutions we are talking about. For example, in batteries. The entire battery fleet of the United States, including car batteries, the entire storage outside hydro, would be able to power US only for actually less than 1 second. And this was less than 1 second last year, the year before that, and it still is less than 1 second. So it is that sort of a realm we are living in. When it comes to contribution to that realm, there are two sledgehammer solutions. One is ammonia, the other is carbon capture and sequestration. The reason why ammonia is very important, you produce hydrogen from various sources, from biomass, from natural gas, or indeed green hydrogen from solar and wind. And then that hydrogen needs to be transported. Now, unfortunately, hydrogen liquefaction is not at all economic at present, and there is high likelihood that it will never be. We have to accept this because the liquefaction temperature of hydrogen is very close to absolute zero. It's about minus 260 degrees versus 272 degrees of absolute zero. So someone recently built a ship, actually it's Kawasaki Group, built the ship to carry liquid hydrogen. And now check these two factoids out. The first one is the ship itself is not fueled by hydrogen. It is fueled by ordinary bunker fuel. And secondly, the ship capacity is 1.5 thousand tons. Now compare this with the world's largest crude carriers, which go as big as 600,000 tons. So that's these are nice efforts, but they will not get us there. What will get us there is hydrogen converted to ammonia, then shipped as liquid. Now, why is it such a quote-unquote magic solution? Because ammonia can co-fire with all liquid hydrocarbons, oil derivatives, as well as coal and gas. So you produce your hydrogen, H2, then you take nitrogen from the air, and you combine them, reform them into ammonia, whose formula is NH3, so totally carbon free. And then ammonia is such a beautiful substance, unless you smell it. If you smell it, it's terrible. It will burn your lungs. But it is such a beautiful substance that if it is in ambient temperature and pressure, it is gas. But if you put a little bit of pressure, it liquefies. Or if you do not want to put any pressure, you just want to reduce the temperature a little bit, in the ambient pressure, minus 30 degrees centigrade, it's again liquid. Then what you do is you take this liquid, you transport it to wherever you want, and there are now very large gas carriers that can carry ammonia by huge volumes, over 100,000 tons, for example. And then you send it to either being cracked back to hydrogen so that you can use in cars to fuel cars, or you can use it as ammonia to fuel ships. And I can guarantee you, ammonia carrying ships are all being converted to being ammonia fueled. And you can carry these to power plants that will consume ammonia either together with coal or together with natural gas to co-fire, or alternatively, if you do the necessary modifications, ammonia can easily totally substitute for coal, gas, and oil products. So if it is natural gas, you simply bring ammonia to the ambient room temperature and pressure. So you fire it together with the gas as gas. And in coal-fired power plants, as some of you may know, coal is first pulverized and then blown into a fire chamber. So while you are blowing coal dust into that fire chamber, you can blow ammonia as well into the same place, as in small liquid or gaseous particles. Now, then the question becomes, will there be enough of it? I'll give you one example. I used to have a power plant in my portfolio. In fact, I had two. One is 4,000 megawatt coal powered in Kazakhstan, and that 4,000 megawatt coal-fired power plant could be totally converted to ammonia, and it would consume about 15 million tons of ammonia every year. Similarly, you can do this as I said, in gas-fired power plants. So then the other power plant is a power plant in the UK, north of England, called Drax. Drax was also about a 4,000 megawatt power plant, and it is now converted to biomass. So for a power plant like Drax, it would make eminent sense both to bring ammonia on board and co-fire with biomass so that they can go back to their glory days of 4,000 if they so chose. And also, so that would be one very good thing. And the other is biomass capturing carbon and sequestering it, the carbon that comes from biomass underground. So why is this so attractive? It is attractive because when you bring biomass and CCS together, magic happens. And that magic is this: biomass absorbs carbon dioxide from the air very efficiently. And when you burn it, if you capture that carbon dioxide and sequester it, you end up at a place where you are actually deeply carbon negative, which is, by the way, what we are trying to do in our about $30 billion project in the United States. The capacity of that, for example, is approximately 26 million tons. And with 26 million tons, we can approximately, we can fuel power plants of 8,000 megawatts. So that's the sort of the scale. Now, this brings us to an interesting dilemma. The dilemma is that the total ammonia production today, the gray ammonia, the traditional carbon-laden ammonia, it is the world production this year, it will be around 200 million tons. And out of that 200 million tons, about 85% is consumed on site. So that ammonia is taken and converted to urea, chemicals, various types of materials, raw materials mostly. So globally traded ammonia that leaves the fences of the ammonia plant is about 30 million tons. So so now we are talking about, in our project alone, we are matching that capacity, increasing it by 100%, which would normally wreak havoc in world ammonia markets if there's such a positive supply shock. So this is, on one hand, what you need, how small the ammonia market is at present. But there is another way of looking at the problem. So here's the way to look at that problem. I did some back of the envelope calculations as to, like, for example, for 10 gigawatt power, how much ammonia, how much investment do you have to make? Well, it is to fuel 10 gigawatt power plants, you will need about 35 million tons of ammonia, and 35 million tons of ammonia is about $130 billion. Now, these are some very, very big numbers. But again, let's go back up to 10,000 feet level and look at the problem from there. We said we need to replace 500 exajoules of fossil fueled primary energy. So, big question: if you were to supply all of that primary energy from wind, solar, and biomass, how many, particularly let's limit the discussion to wind and solar, how many megawatts, or in this case terawatts, so million megawatts of installed capacity must you have, even if you had endless storage, so endless batteries, so you can store energy with the efficiency of those batteries? My back of the envelope calculations tell me that we need about 190 terawatts, so 190 million megawatts of installed power. So we need 190 megawatts. Let's terawatts. Let's ponder this a moment. At the moment, globally, the total solar and wind installed power in the world is less than 2 terawatts. It's actually 1.75 terawatts. So if we take that and increase it, that capacity to about 190 terawatts, the money that is needed, the investment that is needed just for those generation units will be approximately $190 trillion. So $190 trillion means, again, let's put it into perspective. This year, world GDP, the total production, will be $95 trillion. So if the entire world just produces, doesn't eat, doesn't consume anything, it just produces and invests in this effort, it will take 2 years of world's GDP. So when we come to the world of, oh, by the way, this doesn't include the cost of storage. This doesn't include the cost of additional transmission and so on. My assumption is we are looking at maybe as a minimum 3 years world's GDP. So maybe we are looking at close to $300 trillion to totally decarbonize. But here's the interesting thing. Even if you do all of this, still you will not have cut off carbon emissions completely, because you still have to transport, you still have to manufacture, and of course you still have to construct. So all of these are carbon emitting factors. So as you know, there is this jargon, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So net you will be carbon positive. But if you combine carbon capture and sequestration with biomass, that is the only deeply carbon negative, all scopes combined, scope 1, 2, 3 combined, methodology to produce negative carbon energy. So now, where is the world on that one? So in our project, we will be capturing up to 98% of carbon dioxide. So there is a 2% emissions. So where does this leave us? So this is 2%, this is blue ammonia, blue hydrogen I'm talking about. So we take natural gas, then from that we strip hydrogen, and we capture and sequester the resulting carbon dioxide. So because of our very high carbon dioxide capture, that is 98%, if we just do not touch biomass, our net emissions will be between solar and wind. Will be a little bit worse than wind, a little bit better than solar, because apparently solar manufacturing emits a lot of carbon dioxide. So that's the so that's where we would be. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to be net negative. We wanted to break the sound barrier in this regard. And so we decided to bring to our project a good amount of biomass, so that we can convert biomass into hydrogen as well, but capture the carbon dioxide in that too, making the total sum net negative. So that's something we are all proud to be doing, and we hope to in that particular project achieve financial close fairly soon. So one might ask the following question. Some of you are small, your enterprises are small enterprises, some of yours are maybe very big. You might be asking this question, well, if you want to do carbon capture and sequestration, surely this must be a big, expensive endeavor. Good news, not at all. There are companies, certainly in the US, in a very established way, there are several companies who come to your doorstep, to your fence, take your carbon dioxide from you, go and capture and sequester it in their own carbon dioxide reservoirs, then secure the government certification for that amount of sequestration and submit it to you so that you can, if you want, you can pass it on to your client saying that, look, here is our carbon certificate. We haven't emitted much carbon. Or indeed, if there are subsidies, etc. involved, then you can go and claim those with those certificates. So there are many companies. We can discuss maybe some of them. And all you do is you contract with one and they take care. All you need to do is capture your carbon dioxide in the process and give it to those guys. So while we are in this sort of a realm, about 40 days ago, this world changed in a very big and very bad way due to the terrible, brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We stepped into a very, very unfortunate phase for the world's citizens, and our feelings are with the Ukrainians, who are fighting like lions against a pretty unpleasant enemy. So coal is already cut. Russian coal is already cut. Oil and natural gas are on their way to be out of the Western European realm. So we are, some of you might be familiar with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels's Communist Manifesto, I think 1852. It starts, a specter is haunting Europe, specter of communism. I think at this moment, a specter is haunting Europe, the specter of an energy crisis. So people are doing some very interesting things. Just a few days ago, the Italian Prime Minister was in Algeria trying to secure LNG supplies. Several German power companies are effectively run from the Chancellor's office because, not only German, but Italian as well, because they have a lot of power assets in Russia. So we have entered into a phase where political risks are a lot more important than before. So hydrogen production, biomass, and then followed by carbon capture and sequestration will solve this problem of Europe as well, and deliver the knockout punch to two problems at the same time: energy security and a low carbon future. With that, let me, I'm at my 25th minute. I don't want to exceed it. I would be very happy to take questions if you guys would like to.
Thank you, Sertaç. Amazing presentation. A lot of positive feedback. Everyone loves the statistics and then the clarity you actually bring into such a complicated subject. Hydrogen is on everyone's mind, but no one actually knows a lot about it. So
I was actually smiling at Phil's comment and said, I actually work at the ammonia production, but I wish everyone could communicate this as clearly as Sertaç does. And I was smiling because I always, when I listen to you, I wish I would have some technical background to be able to, while I understand to save my life, I would not be able to explain, especially hydrogen, right? So And then, of course, goes to all this kind of courageous developers who venturing into the space, kind of being at the forefront of the innovation and taking our humanity forward, solving our challenges. Thank you very much for your support in relation to Ukraine. As you know, we're Ukrainian, our team. We have many Ukrainian team members. It's I don't like talking about. It's not like, you know. It's we invite people to talk about hydrogen, so it's not my place to be talking about Ukraine. Everyone knows about it, but thank you so much because it's so close to our heart, and indeed this is a very very trying and kind of scary times for all of us, right, in so many ways. But then, of course, for investment community as well as for developers, political in countries is something to be definitely aware of. So Sertaj, thank you so much for your wonderful
questions, but that we're waiting for. We won't be able to answer all of them, but at least let's cover.
I can see that audience is still here. Everyone is like all ears. We have hardly anyone left. We actually have a very stable audience throughout, so which tells me that people are enjoying and learning something, and we get so many great comments here. Vlad, would you?
So let's
try
to cover at least a couple questions. So, Sertaj, you mentioned that you're working on a large project in US, so you're knowledgeable about. I'm sure you're knowledgeable about all geographies, but US and Canada. So, one comment or question that is in many parts of the US and Canada there are loud voices to make hydrogen, and the equipment. I think it was Peter who asked this question. The equipment can deliver proven technology to make liquid hydrogen. But the challenge is finding the buyers of the output and getting the output to buy. So any idea where the current and probable buyers are? So basically offtake. So what would you have to say about this?
Yes, so some parts of the world are very sophisticated when it comes to hydrogen demand and also hydrogen pipeline reticulations. So, for example, US Gulf Coast is one of them. In Europe, it is Rotterdam, where there are hydrogen pipelines, and they are also starting to build ammonia pipelines. So, like, for example, it took almost a year for us to choose the location site for our plant because we were looking for a place that is both on the river with sea access, with hydrogen pipelines, carbon dioxide pipelines for sequestration, ammonia pipelines, natural gas pipelines, so you name it. Thankfully, in some parts of the world, these are all well established. So the folks, first, I'm not a believer in liquid hydrogen. As I said, you have to cool it so deeply, close to absolute zero, like 260 degrees. It becomes enormously energy intensive, which means carbon dioxide intensive, and it just generally doesn't make sense. If you want to liquefy it, you have two options. You can turn it into methanol, or you can turn it into ammonia, obviously. But my advice is this: if you are a small hydrogen producer, you just set up shop in an area that is close to your consumers and where these existing the pipeline network already exists. The rest should be fairly easy.
Especially in the US and Canada, I suppose this hydrogen infrastructure moves quite fast, like in Norway.
Yes, exactly.
And European countries. Obviously, when you want to build a hydrogen plant in an emerging market, you'll face a lot of difficulties. Great. Another question. So basically, from following your presentation, do you see hydrogen as an alternative fuel or fuel of the future? And do you think it's economically viable and can replace fossil fuels today?
The answer is absolutely yes. This is where I'm investing probably the rest of my life, whatever is remaining from it. It's a resounding yes. The question is more the first group of questions, where you can use hydrogen as you produce. So by being close to customers, being close to hydrogen networks. So this will be one part. The other part is you convert it to ammonia and you consume it as ammonia, such as in the power plants and such as as ship fuel, right? The third type is in which applications you will have to crack ammonia back into hydrogen, and the answer to that is maybe in airplane applications, vertical flight applications, etc. So then this is one good part. The other good part is in some places you might like to use methanol instead of ammonia. Methanol still contains a carbon atom, so that might be a problem. But this is the future. To be honest, there is no, particularly now with this political uncertainty, which is, I mean, energy uncertainty is the least of my worries regarding the Russian invasion of Ukraine, compared with human lives and so on being lost at present, and other atrocities. But this, immediately after that comes the energy security, and now all the indicators turned very, very strongly from Russian gas to ammonia and hydrogen.
Very good. Let's try to cover at least 2 more questions. I think we have over a dozen, but I won't be able to cover all of them. So you mentioned that you're working on a very large project in US, 30 billion, if I'm correct, right? So the question from the audience was why we are not looking at addressing solutions which can be delivered quickly and at cost which communities and municipalities can afford, rather than large-scale high-tech plants or infrastructure projects. So, basically, why don't we have more smaller projects which can be adopted without actually investing too much into infrastructure?
And that can be implemented faster, yeah, given that.
Yes. So this is a race where everybody wins. So there are many people. In fact, when you were doing your investor conference last time, we had so many amazing projects, developers of which were looking for ideas, looking for funds, so there are a lot of people doing just that, and I'm very happy that they are doing that. And while they are doing that, maybe the small community approach, one customer approach, one town approach, using the waste material either from sewage or solid waste, etc. There are like so many of these things. This is like, I describe this as a death by 1,000 cuts. We are facing a formidable enemy in the shape of carbon emissions, and those thousands of small community, quick, etc. They are attacking this giant with their razors, and I'm a little bit behind, but I'm running towards it with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, good. Well, basically, any kind of tool, any weapon is good in this war against climate change, right? So you have to do both small scale and also large scale as much as you can. I understand. Great. 2 more questions. I'll combine them into one because they both related to CCS technology. So is CCS a bankable technology? There are hardly any proven and running plants at large scale, and biomass feedstock, how to ensure it is really green and not at cost of agriculture lands. So and in addition to this, what would be the LCOE from ammonia plus CCS, and when will we get there? By 2050, perhaps. So quite a few small questions in one, but it's all related to your CCS perspective on CCS technology.
Sure, there are quite a number of points. I'll try to make sure I don't miss any one of them. So you can go to a CCS contractor today and give him a volume, let's say 1 ton of carbon dioxide today. And then he will take it, sequester it, he will get a US government recognized certification for it today. They will give me that certificate today. And I will go to the US government for a tax rebate because of my sequestration today. So let's not what will happen in the 50 years into the future? Will there be leaks of carbon dioxide? I don't know. The engineers tell me unlikely, but I don't know. What I do know is this. The good things about carbon capture and sequestration today are here. The bad things are futuristic, if they ever come. Whereas in other areas, battery technologies, the good things are futuristic. Hopefully they will come. So we have a bird in the pocket today when it comes to CCS. In the other examples, many of the birds are in the bush. And when you are capturing and sequestering carbon, you are doing this several kilometers below the ground level. So I don't think, so you work with companies which specialize in CCS. So, and I'm not the expert in it, but they are normally capturing this in underground geological reserves that are several kilometers, if not tens of kilometers underground. So I don't see a connection between agricultural land use and CCS.
Yes, I think that's more about biomass, and that was so. Well, thank you so much, Sertaç. I think we will be wrapping up. Yes, while we have a very curious audience here.
Sorry, let me just add one more thing. Even when it comes to biomass, there are different types of biomass, right? One is if you are growing stuff so that you can burn it. This is one thing.
Yes.
This is one type. But for example, US has huge plantations of sugarcane, and not only US, but many countries, right? And then once you process that sugarcane and get the sugar out of it, you have literally mountains of sugarcane husks. They are called, I think it's a French word, that's called bagasse. So you have these mountains of bagasse that the owners have no idea what to do with. They pay you to take it. So you take it and do something good for the planet. So that's even in biomass you have to distinguish. Sorry to
of course.
interrupt.
Yes, of course. And William has covered that topic really well. And I definitely support, and I can definitely see support from investors when we talk about biomass projects. There is often, very often the first question that is asked, okay, what is a feedstock, and is it is it a waste material, or if, for example, the source of feedstock is you need to plant some sort of grass and utilize farmlands and water and other things that kind of defies the purpose, right? So, invariably, thank you very much. It's we kind of went over a little bit over time, but everyone is still here. Everyone's still asking questions. So, Sertaç, thank you so much. I can never kind of be bored listening to you. It's like so. Once again, Sertaç, thank you. I would like to thank our audience for being here with us today. I just want to reiterate, we shared with you a very valuable checklist. This is in a section of handouts. This is kind of will help you along within your development journey. We quite often we get a lot of projects, and often developers there is a gap in terms of understanding what needs to be prepared, and so many projects have half-cooked information and so many things that are not ready. But this is the purpose of our funding accelerator. Our advisors will guide you through the steps and kind of bring you to a state of being investor ready. But this checklist that we have shared with you is definitely very valuable, and they will help you a lot. With that, so we will
have... just briefly mention the criteria and kind of what the projects versus ventures.
Yes, variably in. So thank you,
We do receive a lot of ventures, and unfortunately, we have to reject them because we just simply don't have the right type of investors for those. We focus on project finance, but I'll let you.
Yes. So while we love innovation, and there are so many incredible green tech and clean tech innovations, we are not geared. We're focusing solely on projects, and mostly projects in development phase. So this is our core competencies. This is what we're geared to help you with, and our focus, and of course, to guide you through this development phase and kind of secure world-class funders and partners for your projects. This is our commitment. As part of this program, we also organize this wonderful events, invite wonderful and great experts like Sertac, Willie today. And so next webinar we'll have on 10th of May. We will focus on how to de-risk your project. And de-risking is one of the very key questions that investors are asking. How, of course, we will help you, and we'll discuss how to structure your projects in order to secure funding on optimal terms and as quickly as possible. Everyone, of course, all developers need money to kind of develop and build their projects. So this will be how to de-risk your project, how to structure it to attract optimal funding, and how to improve your project IRR. This will be a topic of our next discussion, which will take place on 10th of May. Thank you very much for being with us. Sertac, thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful evening, or if you are somewhere in another part of the world, wonderful day. I look forward to adding value to you. Please either submit your project through our Funding Accelerator program link that we shared.
I've just shared it again, by the way, just both links for your convenience.
Yes, or you can send it to Vlad or myself. It's as good, really. So thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.